St. Juan's home for the ADD.
Three, two, one, launch. Hey there, this is Quan3217 bringing you episode 10 of Bring Your Own Com. And today we continue launching the satellite constellation to orbit the moon that maybe we should have launched before we sent any Kerbonauts to. This is the third launch of the series. The first one is already on its way to the moon, and the second one is in parking orbit waiting for its departure window. And here we have another rather uneventful launch of a sandstone. I knew that was going to happen. Maybe it is time to invest in Sepatrons. Let's see if we can get some materials-based science while we're up here. Now we got nothing. Some Sepatrons would have been nice, but I don't think there was really any flaws in this design. There are no fundamental flaws. We shall return to flight immediately, especially because Valentina needs this. 3, 2, 1, launch. If at first you don't succeed, fly again. Well, we safely made it through staging that time. The boost isn't great. Well, here is the newly christened Moon Relay 1, and again I gotta apologize for the lighting, but this time I have a good excuse. We are on the dark side of the moon. So while we're here in the darkness, we'll go ahead and extend all the solar panels. Not that it'll do us any good now, but we won't be in the darkness forever. Well, we're going to accomplish our goal of getting one of the moon relays into position before Valentina gets there, but let's see how Valentina's doing at the moment. And here she is, the highest Kerbal knot it has ever been. And now even more so. You're higher than you've ever been, and now you're even higher. Yeah. Greetings from Colorado! So yes, it is very round. And so we're squeezing all of this great crew report data back through the straw here. And it's not even the relay antenna that's the limitation, it's the amount of power that we're able to feed it. Next time we're going to have to bring more than 6 solar cells. Well, that old moon is starting to get real big in the window there. So let's go have a look at Moon Relay 2. It's about time for it to be on its way to the moon. Is it Moon Relay 2 or 3? Anyway, the alarm clock will figure it out for us. Yes, I admit it, I'm doing this in post. Yeah, my strategy for YouTube here is I've got my NVIDIA card doing the recording, and it's got the shadow play feature, and I use it to record both the video and the game audio. And then I have Audacity running in the background that records my microphone audio for all the live commentary. And then afterwards, I suck everything into Adobe Premiere Elements 12, and then get everything nice and synchronized up, which is sometimes a challenge because sometimes Shadowplay doesn't do a good job of syncing its audio and video. But once I've got everything in there, I play the whole thing back in Elements, and while I'm watching, I figure out what needs to be left on the cutting room floor, and what narration I need to edit, and what narration I need to add to try and make it a more exciting video. And I know that these things are not totally chock full of excitement, not as much as I wish, but sometimes the excitement just comes from failures. And I've been giving you the truth. I might have edited it, but I've edited it. I have not lied, and I have not deceived. One thing I've noticed in television is that editors lie and editors deceive, and I've tried to not deceive my viewers. And back to Valentina. Look how happy she is! And she is also officially the first Kerbonaut to ever be under the gravitational influence of another object. And back over to Moon Relay 1, which is preparing to enter orbit around the moon. And so, we accomplished our mission. We did get there at least a few minutes ahead of Valentina. We beat her to the sphere of influence, but we didn't get the satellite into orbit before Valentina got to the sphere of influence, but that's okay. We got the satellite to its orbit before Valentina got to her periapse. And as it turns out, that's an easy thing to do because of every Kerbonaut's friend, the Oberth effect. Yep, even back in the real world, in the Apollo days, they say that the Apollo astronauts were the first ones to reach escape velocity, and they were, but we'll get back to the but when we get back here. Going out, they did not reach escape velocity. They only got to about 99%. They went into an orbit that had its periapse near low Earth orbit, and its apoapse not just at the moon, but about twice as far as the moon. And the reason for that is if they had put the apoapse at the moon, that would have worked perfectly, except it would have taken about 5 days to get out instead of the 2 days that they wanted. So they would have had to take 5 days out and 5 days back of fuel and food and water. And food and water are the things that would have ended up taking the most extra mass. And so instead of doing that, they just burned the third stage of their Saturn just a tiny bit longer to kick the orbit up from just touching the moon's orbit to going way the heck out past it. Still not quite to escape velocity, but in doing that, it just maybe 100 meters per second, or maybe even less. They shaved days off of their trip, and that was a good trade to make. Now, coming back from the moon is when they actually hit escape velocity. When they did their translunar ejection, they ejected into a parabola, into an escape orbit, but into an escape orbit that had its periapse within the atmosphere. And here we are back with Valentina. I get a crew report. The moon is essentially gray, no color whatsoever. That's the kind of crew report that from Apollo 8 that almost cost the space program its support. Yeah, it turns out in the real world there was never a mission exactly like this where we flew by the moon without going into orbit. There is a possibility that Apollo 8 would have done that, but they decided, well, since we're carrying this service module engine with a full load of fuel, we might as well use it to get into orbit too. Now there's a bunch of drama about, are they going to go into orbit, and if the engine doesn't work, then are they ever going to get back? But here's the thing. Once they actually use the engine to get into orbit, well, they've tested it and now they know it works. And if it didn't work for them, they wouldn't have gone into orbit and they would have come right back. So there wasn't really a tremendous amount of risk involved there. Yeah, sure, it could have broken down in the middle, but it was the engine on the surface module engine was effectively two separate engines that were just feeding into the same thrust chamber, feeding into the same combustion chamber, and it would have been really hard for any part of it to break and leave them stranded into orbit, especially after they'd already tested it. So it wasn't near as big of a risk as all the drama queens would make it out to believe. And so Valentina has passed the moon. And we're in a relay orbit. But we're going to get her home to her ticker tape parade, not in 4 days. But we're going to use all the Delta V that we have left to bring her back as fast as Kerbally possible. Then we can do a bunch of retrograde and a little bit of inward and just flip the orbit completely around. And it's about 4 hours until the Kerbal Space Center gets on this side, so if we can get this maneuver to take 1 day plus 4 hours, then we will end up, not the maneuver, but the time after the maneuver, the time to periapse, because we can't let it do that. That will hit way too hard. That's about what, there we go, that's perfect. 1 day, 4.5 hours, which will end up landing a little bit to the west of the Kerbal Space Center. So, how big is that maneuver? 448 meters per second, that's pretty good. I may not have an engineering chip on board, but I am an engineer, and I know how to use the rocket equation. I know that if you have the mass of the rocket, and the mass of the fuel, and the specific impulse of the engine, you can figure out the delta V that you have without any stupid engineering chip. Well, except for the big one that's sitting in front of me. 1115 meters per second. That is plenty of delta V in order to get us back. This maneuver only takes 450, so we'll do that. So go ahead and turn up that. Add Sandstone Zebra PC plus 2. Oh, and yeah, I guess we are about 2 hours after Apoapse. So, PC plus 2, that's famous from watching Apollo 13. On their way back from the moon, they did a maneuver to get them back on a free return, which is basically a maneuver to get them back slingshotted. It's not free anymore, they had to pay for it, but back on a trajectory that would hit the atmosphere of the Earth. And then after they passed the moon, they still had fuel left and they still could do some propulsion, and so they set up a burn 2 hours after they passed the moon. They chopped about 10 hours off the trip back. Otherwise, they might not have had power to get back. And they had plenty of oxygen. They had enough oxygen in the lunar module to fill it up twice and to dump the entire atmosphere of the lunar module twice. But they were limited on power and on the other things that they needed in order to keep the lunar module running. And so it was a good thing that they could get back in time. And I didn't plan it this way, but it makes sense that it came out that the maneuver pointed exactly straight back towards the center of Kerbal, because we were just reversing the vertical component of our speed and leaving the horizontal part about where it was. 18.5 seconds is when we fire up. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, light. And we shall speed our way home. I totally should have expected this to be an exact maneuver back towards Kerbal. precise with this one, because that's how we're targeting our entry steepness. That'll do. So in the meantime, on the way back, all the moon relay satellites have finally reached the moon, and we've decided to put them all into about 1-day orbits. It doesn't really matter how, we're not trying for a Kerbal sync or anything, we just want them all to be equal. And that's the easiest way to get them equal, is to aim them all for a nice round number. And in the meantime, Valentina is ready for her trip back through the atmosphere. We do the normal thing of pointing to orbit normal to get rid of the stages, because that way, that's the way I figure that it's the least likely for the stage to hit back again. Because that would be really embarrassing, to be coming down through the atmosphere and to have the stage land on your head. Wow, look at that. Look at the moon out there. Remember, Valentina, when you were out there? So we're getting ready for entry. We've crossed through entry interface, and we're getting hot. Oh yeah, that's usually we don't get any temperature warnings. But coming back from lunar distances, that tends to happen. And I'm a bit worried about the entry temperatures here. Let's see if we can pitch a little bit and get a little bit of uplift to keep us out of the lower... Nope. Heating up the capsule way too much. Never mind. And we check our trajectory, and we see that, yeah, we are definitely captured. We don't have to worry about skipping back out. Skipping isn't really a problem on a zero lift capsule like this, and as long as I'm not pitched, I'm not really going to go up or down or sideways or whatever. I'm just going to go straight ahead and just get slower. Skipping is something you have to worry about on a more advanced thing, where you pitch in order to do a little bit of lift control. And even a gumdrop like these, like the Apollo modules, they'd had so much lift that it was possible for them to lift completely out of the atmosphere. That was even the plan for some entries, that they would lift and go back into a short orbit that would intersect the ground at a later time, a couple of minutes later, and just give the heat shield a chance to cool off again. They ended up not having to use that. They never went completely back into space. They did always skip up higher in the atmosphere, but never completely back into space. Now, the biggest example of this of all was the space shuttle. The space shuttle generated an enormous amount of lift, so much so that it had to turn almost 80 degrees on entry so that the lift wasn't up, but more towards the side. Otherwise, they would have lifted right back out into space. We'll do a couple of victory rolls here. And here we are descending towards the Great Kerbal Desert. And I'm actually glad that we're landing on land, because otherwise, where would I stick my flag? It's like there's no marker where Apollo 11 landed, because that was in the middle of the ocean. The closest thing that they have is that they painted marks around the feet of the astronauts when they stepped off the helicopter. So their landing point was on the deck of the carrier that picked them up. And almost down. Whoa, what was that? Okay, that was just the heat shield exploding. So we're not going to get the deposit back on that, but Valentina's fine. Capsule looks like it's in great shape. Let's go plant that flag. Dark Side of the Moon. Valentina Kerman returned from the vicinity of the moon, and then we'll give the date. The date and time of landing. Date and time of that heat shield exploding. That was weird. I've never seen that happen before. I wonder if we used up too much ablator, or if we just hit too hard. We just hit on the wrong bounce on the parachute. Well, that'll do it for this episode. We'll see you next time. This has been Quan3217. Be sure to comment, like, and subscribe. And remember, if at first you don't succeed, fly, fly again.